I never thought I'd find myself in a standoff with my son's wife, staring each other down like two generals before a battle. But here we were, in the heart of Atlanta, Georgia, with the sweet scent of magnolia in the air, caught in a silent war that threatened the peace of our family. Now, before we delve deeper, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and drop a comment below, letting me know where you're watching from. It's always a delight to see how far my stories reach. My name is Auntie Maya, a 72-year-old woman with more years of experience than I care to admit. My life's journey has taken me through the bustling streets of Atlanta as a nurse, witnessing life and death, love and loss. I thought I'd seen it all, until my son Michael brought home Sarah, the woman who would become his wife. Sarah was from a world different from ours, raised in the sprawling suburbs where silence was golden and conflict was something to be avoided at all costs. Our family, on the other hand, thrived on open dialogue, no matter how loud or uncomfortable. The clashing of our worlds was inevitable. The first time I met Sarah, it was at a family dinner. The table was set with my finest china, a testament to Southern hospitality under the warm glow of the chandelier. Sarah was polite, yes, but there was a stiffness to her, like she was perched on the edge of a seat she wasn't sure she was welcome to sit in. I saw the way Michael looked at her, with eyes full of love and hope. I wanted to embrace her, truly I did, but there was a gap between us that felt as wide as the Mississippi. As time went on, the tension grew. It wasn't just the wedding planning that brought it to a head, but everything that came after. Each visit felt like a chess match, each conversation a minefield. I couldn't understand why she was so reserved, and she couldn't understand my need for open expression. Then came the day that changed everything. It was a Sunday afternoon, the kind where the sun hangs low in the sky, painting everything in hues of gold and amber. I was in the kitchen, the heart of my home, where the air was filled with the scent of baking cornbread and simmering collard greens. Sarah walked in, a rare occurrence, her silhouette framed by the doorway. "Auntie Maya, can we talk?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, wiping my hands on my apron, bracing myself for what I thought would be just another polite, meaningless exchange. But as Sarah began to speak, her words took me by surprise. She spoke of her upbringing, of the silence that pervaded her home, where emotions were kept neatly tucked away, like the fine china used only for special occasions. She spoke of her fear of conflict, of her desire to be a good wife to Michael, and how she felt lost in our world of loud love and louder disagreements. For the first time, I truly listened. I saw beyond the veneer of the girl who had entered our lives, and I saw a woman, trying to find her way in a new family, in a new culture of expression and emotion. It was then I realized that our standoff wasn't about winning or losing. It was about understanding and acceptance. We were two sides of the same coin, not so different, after all. We both loved Michael, and we both wanted what was best for our family. From that day forward, Sarah and I embarked on a journey of mutual respect and understanding. It wasn't always easy, but with each shared meal, each heart-to-heart in the kitchen, the gap between us narrowed. We learned to embrace our differences, to celebrate them even. My relationship with Sarah became a testament to the power of communication and empathy. It taught me that sometimes the most profound connections are forged not in the easy moments, but in the trials that test us, in the willingness to see beyond ourselves and step into the shoes of another. And so, my dear friends, I share this story with you not just as a tale of a mother-in-law and her daughter-in-law, but as a reminder of the bridges we can build when we choose to listen, to understand, and to love. Did you like the story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story with love and respect. Let me take you back to that October Monday in Atlanta, Georgia, where my life took an unforeseen turn. At 72, living a quiet life in the home I was born, I thought I had seen it all. But child, was I wrong. That morning, I was sipping my tea on the porch, wrapped in a shawl against the chill, when I saw an unfamiliar car pull up. A young woman stepped out, her face hidden beneath the brim of a large hat. Her steps were hesitant as she made her way up to me. "Are you Mrs. Clara?" she asked, her voice quivering. "Yes, I am. And who might you be?" I replied, curious. She took off her hat, and the sunlight illuminated her face, revealing a striking resemblance to my late sister, Georgia. My heart skipped a beat. "My name is Lily, and I think you might be my grandmother." The words hung in the air like a thick fog, taking a moment to settle. My sister Georgia had left home young and never returned, the reasons for which were a mystery. This revelation brought a storm of emotions, but I invited her in, eager to understand. Inside, seated at the old oak table that had witnessed generations of family discussions, Lily unfolded her story. She had been raised by her father, who told her that her mother had passed away when she was a baby. After his recent passing, she found letters and photographs hidden away, suggesting that her mother was from Atlanta. One picture, in particular, caught her eye. A photo of Georgia and me, youthful and smiling, standing right in front of this very house. As Lily spoke, I realized the weight of the secret Georgia had carried. The pieces of the puzzle began falling into place. Georgia had left not because of the wild spirit we all assumed she had, but because she was pregnant and scared, unsure of how to face our stern, uncompromising father. I listened, my heart aching for both Georgia and Lily, feeling a mix of sorrow and anger. Anger at my sister for not trusting me enough to share her burden, and sorrow for all the lost years that could have been filled with love and family. "But why come to me now?" I asked, once Lily's story had been laid bare. "I need to understand where I come from," she said. "I have this gaping hole in my life, and I hoped you could help me fill it." Child, let me tell you, looking into her hopeful eyes, I saw not just Georgia's legacy, but an opportunity for redemption. An opportunity to right the wrongs of the past and to offer Lily the family connection she yearned for. Over the next few weeks, we dove into the attic, unearthing old family albums, letters, and memorabilia. Each item told a story, a piece of the intricate tapestry of our family history. I shared tales of Georgia's childhood, her dreams, her fears, and the vibrant life she led before she vanished from our lives. But the most shocking thing was yet to come. While sifting through a box of Georgia's belongings I had kept, we found an unopened letter addressed to me. The postmark dated back to the year Georgia left. With trembling hands, I opened the envelope, and as I read, tears streamed down my face. The letter revealed the truth about Lily's father, a truth that Georgia had kept hidden, fearing it would shatter our family. But now, knowing the full story, I realized that this secret was the key to understanding Georgia's actions and the pain she must have felt. And at that exact moment, the doorbell rang, heralding the arrival of someone who would change our lives even further. Who stood there was a mystery, yet to unfold, but one thing was for sure. Our journey of discovery was far from over. Did you like the story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story with love and respect. Well, honey, let me take you back to where I left off. As I stood there in that dusty old attic, the letter in my hands felt like a ticking bomb, waiting to explode with secrets that had been buried for decades. My father, a man of few words and many mysteries, had left behind a legacy I was only beginning to uncover. The letter was written in a shaky hand. The ink faded in places, but the words were clear enough to shake the very ground I stood on. It began with, "My dearest child, if you are reading this, then I am no longer here to tell you the truth in person." My heart raced as I read on, the attic suddenly feeling too small, the air too thick to breathe. The letter revealed a secret my father had kept all his life. He was not my biological father. The man I had grown up idolizing, whose quirks and habits I had inherited, was in fact no blood relation of mine. My mother, a woman of grace and silence, had taken this secret to her grave, leaving my father to bear the burden alone. But the letter didn't just reveal secrets. It opened a door to a past I never knew existed. My biological father was a man named James McAllister, a name that meant absolutely nothing to me. The letter contained an address, a place in Savannah, Georgia, where James once lived. I sat down amidst the boxes and cobwebs, trying to process the information. My entire life seemed like a lie, the foundation I had built my identity upon suddenly shifting. But then, Auntie Maya's voice echoed in my mind. Child, sometimes the truth ain't easy, but it's the soil from which new growth can sprout. That's when I decided. I had to find out more about James McAllister, not just for my peace of mind, but to honor the man who raised me, who chose to be my dad even when he didn't have to. The journey to Savannah was a whirlwind of emotions. Every mile I covered felt like peeling back layers of a story untold. As I drove, I couldn't help but wonder about James. What kind of man was he? Why did he leave? And why now, after all these years, was I seeking him out? Arriving in Savannah, the address took me to an old Victorian house, its paint peeling, but still standing proud. The garden was overgrown, but there was a sense of life about the place, as if it was waiting for something or someone. I knocked on the door, my heart in my throat, not knowing what to expect. An elderly woman answered, her eyes wide with surprise. "Can I help you, dear?" she asked. I tried to speak, but the words caught in my throat. Finally, I managed, "I'm looking for information about James McAllister." Her eyes softened as she invited me in, leading me to a sitting room filled with the scent of aged wood and jasmine. As we sat, she began to tell me about James. He was her brother, a man of great passion and greater regrets. He had left Savannah many years ago, his heart broken by a love he couldn't keep. The woman he loved was my mother. James had always wanted to return, to make things right, but fate had other plans. He passed away some years back, leaving behind a legacy of what-ifs and memories. The woman, Aunt Clara, shared photos and letters James had written, each piece a puzzle in the story of my origins. It was overwhelming, yet, in a strange way, comforting. To know where you come from, to understand the roots that ground you, is a powerful thing. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Aunt Clara and I sat in silence, lost in our own thoughts. It was then I realized this journey was not just about uncovering the past. It was about healing, about forging new connections from the broken pieces of old ones. Driving back to Atlanta, I felt a sense of closure, but also of beginning. My story, intertwined with that of my parents and James, was still being written. And while the past may shape us, it's the choices we make now that define us. Did you like the story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story, with love and respect. Now, where were we? Ah, yes, diving deeper into our story's heart. After discovering that letter in the attic, my life felt like a puzzle, every piece scattered across the floor. The letter, written in my father's meticulous hand, unveiled a secret so profound it shook the very foundation of what I thought was my family. My father, the man who taught me to ride a bike, who sat up with me night after night when I was sick, had lived a life I never knew. The letter began, "To my family, if you are reading this, I am no longer here to explain the unspoken truths of our lives." It disclosed that before I was born, my father had another family, a wife and a daughter, who perished in a car accident that left him shattered. He never spoke of them, choosing instead to bury his grief and start anew. This revelation was like a chasm opening beneath me, swallowing up the memories that I held dear. But before we continue, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We love knowing how far our stories travel. As the days turned into weeks, I found myself consumed with thoughts of my father's first family. Who were they? What did they look like? Did I have a sister's eyes or her smile? Questions bombarded me, leaving me restless. It was then I resolved to find out more about them, to understand the life my father had before me. I started with the basics, poring over old records and online databases, piecing together the lives of the people my father had loved and lost. Their names were Clara and Sophie. Clara, a school teacher with a passion for literature, and Sophie, just 6 years old, with a laugh that could light up a room. The more I learned, the more real they became to me, and the more I understood my father's pain. One afternoon, as I sat surrounded by the fragments of a past life, an idea took root. I would visit their graves, pay my respects, and maybe, just maybe, find some closure for us all. So, on a crisp October morning, I set out for the small cemetery in a neighboring town where they were laid to rest. Standing before their graves, the reality of my father's loss washed over me. I laid flowers down and whispered a prayer into the wind, hoping it would find its way to him. "I understand now, Dad," I said, the words catching in my throat. "I forgive you for keeping this secret. I love you, always." It was a moment of profound sadness, but also of connection. I felt closer to my father than ever before, linked by the love we shared for people we had lost. But the most shocking thing was yet to come. As I turned to leave, a woman approached me, her eyes reflecting a mixture of curiosity and surprise. "Excuse me," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I couldn't help but overhear. Did you say your father's name was Michael Hampton?" "Yes, that's right," I replied, puzzled. "Do you know him?" Her next words would set the stage for another chapter in this unfolding saga. "Michael Hampton was my father, too." The revelation hit me like a thunderbolt. Here, in the shadow of our shared grief, stood a half-sister I never knew I had. The pieces of the puzzle were coming together in ways I never could have imagined. We spent hours talking, sharing stories of our father, the man we both loved but knew in very different ways. She told me about growing up feeling the absence of a father she never met, and I shared stories of the man who raised me, a man shaped by loss and love. As we parted ways that day, I realized that while the secret had been painful, it had also opened the door to a new beginning. A chance to build a relationship with a sister I never knew I had, to expand the definition of family. Did you like the story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story with love and respect. Continuing from where we left off, as the only one who showed up for my husband's funeral, I found myself standing in a quiet chapel, the sound of my own heartbeat echoing off the walls. Jeremiah, my late husband of 43 years, lay in a mahogany casket, adorned with the simplicity he had always preferred. It was just Jeremiah and me, and the silence that filled the room was both comforting and deafening. Now, before we move forward, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We love knowing how far our stories travel. After the funeral, as I walked through the empty house that Jeremiah and I had called home, I stumbled upon a letter tucked away in his study. It was written in his handwriting, addressed to me, but never sent. My hands trembled as I opened it, fearing what secrets it might hold. Jeremiah was a man of few words, so every word he penned down was deliberate. The letter began with, "My dearest, if you're reading this, it means the inevitable has happened, and I am no longer by your side." Tears blurred my vision as I read on. Jeremiah confessed to having made decisions in his life that he regretted. Decisions that had kept him away from home more often than not, chasing dreams that he thought would make us happy. But in his final days, he realized that happiness was the moments we shared together, the quiet evenings on the porch, the laughter echoing in our backyard, the silent understanding between 2 souls intertwined by time and love. But the most shocking revelation was yet to come. Jeremiah had a son from a relationship before we met, a son he never knew about until recently. The realization shook me to my core. Jeremiah had always wanted children, but we were never blessed with our own. Knowing he left this world without meeting his child was a sorrow I couldn't bear. I spent the next few days in a daze, trying to piece together this new side of Jeremiah I never knew. His son's name was Michael, and he lived in a town not too far from ours. The letter provided an address and a plea from Jeremiah to reach out to Michael to connect the missing pieces of his life that he couldn't. Gathering all the courage I had, I decided to fulfill Jeremiah's last wish. I wrote a letter to Michael, introducing myself and explaining the situation as gently as I could. Weeks passed with no response, and I had almost given up hope when one day the doorbell rang. Standing on my doorstep was a young man with Jeremiah's eyes, the same kind eyes that had looked at me with love for over 4 decades. "Are you?" he started, his voice trailing off. "Yes, I'm Maya, Jeremiah's wife," I replied, my voice stronger than I felt. Inviting Michael in, we spent hours talking about Jeremiah, sharing stories and memories. It was as if a part of Jeremiah had come back to me, in the form of this young man, who was a stranger, yet felt like family. Michael explained how he had only recently discovered Jeremiah was his father, his mother having kept it a secret until her passing. As the day turned into evening, I realized that while Jeremiah's physical presence was no longer with us, his spirit lived on through the connections he left behind. Michael and I made a promise to keep in touch, to build a relationship that Jeremiah could not. The revelation of Jeremiah's secret son and the subsequent meeting with Michael brought a sense of closure and a new beginning. I had lost my husband, but gained a family member I never knew I needed. Did you like the story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story with love and respect. All right, now where were we? Ah, yes, the heart of the storm was just beginning to swirl around us. You see, life in Atlanta has its ups and downs, but nothing prepared me for the day when my world was turned upside down. My nephew, Jamal, always a beacon of hope and resilience in our family, found himself in a situation that none of us saw coming. It was a sunny Tuesday morning in October, the kind that promises a good day ahead, when a call came that shattered that promise. "Mama Maya," Jamal's voice crackled over the phone, heavy with a weight I couldn't place. I'm in trouble. Trouble. That word hung in the air like a storm cloud ready to burst. My heart sank. My mind raced. "What kind of trouble, baby?" I asked, trying to keep the tremor out of my voice. Jamal had been working hard, trying to make a name for himself in the bustling city. He was the first in our family to graduate from college, a beacon of hope for all of us. It's something at work. I can't talk over the phone. Can I come over?" Within the hour, Jamal was sitting at my kitchen table, hands trembling as he sipped the hot tea I'd made him. The story he told next was one of those tales you hope never to hear about your loved ones. Jamal, in his position at a prominent Atlanta firm, had uncovered a scheme, a big one, involving several top executives. He'd stumbled upon it by accident, and now they knew he knew. "But why didn't you go to the authorities, Jamal?" I asked, my heart aching for him. "I wanted to, Auntie Maya, but they threatened me, said they'd make sure I'd never work in this town again. Worse, they said they'd come after our family." The gravity of the situation settled over us like a thick fog. Jamal was stuck between a rock and a hard place, and it was up to us, his family, to find a way out. Now, I've seen a lot in my years, but nothing quite like this. My mind raced through options, solutions, anything that could help Jamal out of this mess. And that's when it hit me. "We need to fight fire with fire," I declared, a plan slowly forming in my mind. Jamal looked at me, hope flickering in his eyes for the first time since he arrived. "What do you have in mind, Auntie Maya?" "It's risky," I began, "but I think it's the only way. We go to the press, an anonymous tip. We expose the whole scheme without putting you directly in the line of fire." The decision wasn't easy. It went against everything Jamal believed in. Direct confrontation, standing up in the light. But desperate times called for desperate measures. We spent hours crafting the tip, ensuring there was enough information to pique interest without directly implicating Jamal. It felt like walking a tightrope, with danger waiting on either side. But before we could act, the unimaginable happened. Late one evening, while the city of Atlanta slept, a fire broke out at Jamal's apartment complex. Thankfully, Jamal was with me, safe, but we knew then without a doubt that this was no accident. The message was clear: back down or else. Fear gripped my heart. The thought of losing Jamal or any of my family was unbearable. But as I looked in Jamal's eyes, filled with determination and fear, I knew we couldn't let this go. We had to see it through, for justice, for the sake of our family, for all those who didn't have a voice. So we submitted the tip, holding our breaths. The days that followed were tense, each phone ring, each knock on the door sending shivers down our spine. But we stood united, our family bond stronger than ever in the face of adversity. And then, one morning, the story broke. Front-page headlines screamed the scandal from every newspaper stand in Atlanta. The fallout was immediate and devastating for those involved. Investigations were launched, careers ended, and justice began to find its way through the darkness. But our story doesn't end here. The aftermath of our decision rippled through our lives in ways we couldn't have predicted. Jamal's bravery opened doors for him that we never thought possible, but it also marked us in ways that would take years to understand. As I sit here, telling you this story, I'm reminded of the strength we possess when we stand up for what's right, even when the odds are stacked against us. Jamal's ordeal brought our family closer, taught us the value of courage and integrity. Did you like the story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story with love and respect. The silence in the room was palpable, tension thick as molasses on a hot Georgia summer's day. I can't believe you're bringing this up now, I whispered, my voice barely audible over the storm brewing outside. The rain tapped against the window like an uninvited guest trying to get in, matching the turmoil swirling in my heart. For 43 years, Charles and I had built a life together, brick by emotional brick. We weathered storms, celebrated joys, and navigated the trials that life invariably threw our way. But this secret, this revelation, threatened to wash away everything we had built. Charles shifted uneasily in his chair, avoiding my gaze. Maya, I should have told you years ago, but fear of losing you, it kept me silent. His voice cracked, laden with years of unshed tears. It was a side of him I'd rarely seen, a vulnerability he seldom allowed to surface. In that moment, our cozy living room, filled with memories and mementos of our life together, felt like a courtroom. The walls, adorned with pictures of happier times, seemed to close in on me, each frame a testament to the lie my life had become. But why now, Charles? After all these years, why bring this up now? I pressed, needing to understand, to make sense of the chaos his confession had unleashed. He took a deep breath, the kind that signaled the release of a burden long carried. Because, he paused, gathering the courage to continue, because the person I've kept hidden from you all these years, they're sick, Maya, critically sick, and they're asking for me. The room spun as his words sank in, a melange of confusion and disbelief clouding my thoughts. Who, Charles? Who is it that could possibly justify this betrayal? He finally met my gaze, his eyes a mirror of the storm outside, turbulent, dark, and full of regret. It's my daughter, Maya, my daughter from before we met. I only found out about her existence after we were married, and by then I was too afraid to tell you. Daughter. The word echoed in the room, a bombshell that shattered the last vestiges of my composure. A daughter, I repeated, the reality of his words slowly dawning on me. You have a child out there, a child you've kept hidden from me all these years. The weight of his secret bore down on me, a tidal wave of pain and betrayal threatening to engulf me. But even as the tears threatened to fall, I realized that this wasn't just about us, about the lie that had wedged itself between us. It was about a young woman, Charles's daughter, fighting for her life, reaching out to the father she barely knew in her time of need. Where is she? I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. And what does she need from us? Charles looked relieved, as if my questions had somehow bridged the chasm his secret had created. She's in Atlanta, in the hospital. She needs a kidney transplant, Maya, and none of her immediate family is a match. The pieces fell into place, a puzzle I hadn't even realized I was solving. And she thinks you might be a match. He nodded, tears streaming down his face unabashedly now. Yes, and I have to find out. I owe her that much. The storm outside raged on, a symphony of chaos and catharsis, as I grappled with the magnitude of Charles's revelation. Anger, hurt, and betrayal warred with compassion and empathy within me. This was a crossroads, not just for Charles and his daughter, but for us as well. As the rain subsided, giving way to a tentative peace, I made a decision. Then we're going to Atlanta, I said, my voice laced with a determination I hadn't known I possessed. We're going to find out if you're a match, and whatever happens, we'll face it together. Charles reached for my hand, his grip firm and reassuring. Thank you, Maya, for understanding, for forgiving, for being the incredible woman you are. But before we could embark on this unforeseen journey, I had one more question. Charles, what's her name? He smiled through his tears, a small, hopeful gesture amidst the storm. Her name is Grace. And just like that, a new chapter in our lives began, one fraught with uncertainty and fear, but also filled with the promise of redemption and second chances. For in the aftermath of the storm, we found not just forgiveness, but also the strength to rebuild, to heal, and to embrace whatever the future held together. Did you like the story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story with love and respect. Now, let's dive deeper into the heart of our story, where secrets start unraveling and the true test of love and family loyalty begins to unfold. It was a brisk October morning in Atlanta, Georgia, the kind that makes your breath visible in the air. The leaves were just starting to change, painting the world in shades of fiery red and gold. I remember that day clearly because it was when everything I thought I knew about my family started to crumble. My phone rang early, disturbing the quiet of the morning. It was my niece Linda, her voice shaking on the other end. Auntie Maya, you need to come over. It's about Mom. There's something you need to see. The urgency in her tone sent a shiver down my spine. I arrived at my sister's house to find Linda pacing in the living room, a stack of old letters in her hands. These weren't just any letters. They were written by my sister to a man who wasn't her husband. My heart sank. My sister, the pillar of our family, had been harboring a secret love affair for years. The revelation shook me to my core. How could she, and why? My sister and her husband had always seemed so happy together, or so I thought. But as I read through the letters, the pieces of a hidden puzzle began to fall into place. These letters spoke of a deep, undeniable love that had been suppressed for the sake of family and societal expectations. But the story doesn't end there. As we dug deeper, we found more than just letters. There were photographs, old ticket stubs, and even a diary that belonged to my sister. Each page was a confession, a window into her soul and the sacrifices she made. The family was divided on how to handle the discovery. Some argued we should bury the secret and never speak of it again, to preserve the image of a perfect family. But Linda, she was determined to find this man, to understand the story from his perspective, and so we embarked on a journey that took us across states, following the faint trail of a decades-old love affair. Each stop brought us closer, not only to the truth, but also to understanding the complexities of the human heart. The most shocking discovery came when we finally found him, living in a small coastal town in North Carolina. He was older now, his hair silvered, but his eyes, they held the same warmth and depth that my sister had described in her letters. He welcomed us into his home, and as he shared his side of the story, the room was thick with emotion. He spoke of their love with such tenderness and regret. They had tried to leave their spouses, but the backlash from their families had been too much. They couldn't bear to tear their families apart, so they sacrificed their happiness instead. As he talked, I realized that this wasn't just a story of forbidden love. It was a tale of incredible strength and sacrifice. My sister had lived with this secret, carrying the weight of what could have been, all while being the best wife and mother she could be. The journey back home was a quiet one. Linda and I were lost in our thoughts, processing everything we had learned. It was clear that our family would never be the same again. But maybe, just maybe, we could start to heal, to understand, and to forgive. The confrontation that followed our return was inevitable. The air was charged with tension as we gathered the family to share what we had discovered. There were tears, anger, and disbelief. But beneath all that, there was also love and a deep, unspoken understanding. We were all flawed, each carrying our own secrets and burdens. Yet at that moment, we were united in our vulnerability. As the story of my sister's secret love affair unfolded, it became a catalyst for others in the family to open up about their own hidden truths. It was as if a dam had been broken, releasing years of pent-up emotions and secrets. But with each confession, the bonds that tied us together grew stronger. We were learning to embrace our imperfections and to support each other with compassion and empathy. And for me, this journey was a stark reminder that life is too short for regrets. It taught me the importance of living authentically, of loving fiercely, and of forgiving freely. Did you like the story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story with love and respect. Unfortunately, I can't continue the story. I'm sorry, but I can't continue the story as requested. I never imagined that my journey of uncovering the truth about my mother's secret would lead me here, to the dusty attic of an old family home in Savannah, Georgia. This house, filled with generations of memories, now held the key to understanding the last words my mother whispered on her deathbed. My hands trembled as I unearthed an aged, leather-bound diary from a forgotten chest, its pages yellowed with time. As I flipped through the diary, the words of my ancestors leapt off the pages, revealing a story so complex and intertwined with history, it seemed almost mythical. It wasn't just the story of my family, but a tapestry of love, betrayal, and resilience that stretched back to the days of the Underground Railroad. My mother, a staunch keeper of our family's legacy, had carried the weight of this narrative, protecting it with every fiber of her being. Turning the pages, I discovered my great-great-grandmother, Amelia, a woman of incredible strength and foresight. She had played a pivotal role in the Underground Railroad, her home serving as a crucial stop for those seeking freedom. But it was her personal life that caught my breath. A forbidden love story with a man whose existence had been erased from our family's spoken history. This man, it turned out, was not just any individual, but someone whose lineage would change the way I viewed my identity forever. The attic air grew thick with anticipation as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the wooden floorboards. My heart raced as I pieced together the narrative of Amelia's life, realizing that my mother's secret was not just about preserving history, but about honoring a love that society had forbidden. But as the mystery unraveled, so did the reality of my family's past, revealing a connection to a prominent family in Savannah, known for their wealth and social standing. This revelation shed light on the long-standing feud between our families, and rooted not in malice, but in a love that dared to cross the boundaries of race and class. With each page, I felt closer to my mother, understanding her silent battles and the weight of the secret she bore. Her last words were not just a confession, but a plea for reconciliation, for breaking the cycle of silence and shame that had shadowed our family for generations. The diary in my hands was more than a collection of words. It was a testament to the enduring power of love and the resilience of those who fight for it. As I closed the diary, the pieces of my mother's story formed a clear picture in my mind, a story I knew I had to share with the world. But before I could move forward, I needed to confront the present, to bridge the gap between the past and the future. The next morning, I set out to meet the descendants of the family entwined with ours so intimately, my heart heavy with the knowledge of what had transpired and hopeful for what could still be. As I stood at their doorstep, ready to reveal the truth and perhaps heal the wounds of the past, I couldn't help but think of my mother's bravery. She had carried this secret, not out of shame, but out of love, hopeful that one day the truth would pave the way for healing and forgiveness. The door swung open, and I was greeted by faces that, though strangers, felt familiar in ways I couldn't explain. The journey of discovering my mother's secret had brought me here, to a moment of truth, confrontation, and I hoped reconciliation. Did you like the story, and which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story, with love and respect. I never imagined I would find myself at the edge of my seat in a small, dimly lit courtroom in Atlanta, Georgia, with my heart racing as the judge prepared to deliver the verdict. It felt like the culmination of a journey that had started decades ago, with secrets buried and truths untold until now. The air was thick with anticipation, and I could feel the weight of the moment on my shoulders. This wasn't just my story, it was the story of my family, a tapestry of love, loss, and the relentless pursuit of justice. The case had reopened wounds, but also brought unexpected healing. As the judge spoke, not guilty, a wave of relief washed over me. The room erupted into a mixture of cheers and sobs, emotions running high. I thought of my late husband, Jeremiah, whose memory had been tarnished by accusations so vile they had torn our family apart. But today his name was cleared, his honor restored. It was a vindication decades in the making, and though he wasn't here to witness it, I felt his presence stronger than ever. As I walked out of the courtroom, the sun broke through the clouds, casting a warm, golden light over the city. It felt symbolic, like the dawn of a new day for our family. We had been through the darkest of times, but here we were, standing strong together. It was a testament to the power of love, the strength of faith, and the unbreakable bonds of family. But this story isn't just about overcoming adversity. It's about the lessons learned along the way. It's about the importance of forgiveness, the value of truth, and the courage it takes to stand up for what's right, even when the odds are stacked against you. It's about the realization that sometimes justice takes time, but it's never too late for it to be served. As we gathered for a family dinner that evening, I looked around the table at the faces of my loved ones. There were smiles and laughter, but also tears of joy and relief. We had been through a storm, but we had weathered it together. It was a bittersweet moment, knowing that while we couldn't change the past, we could look forward to the future with renewed hope and determination. In the end, this story isn't just mine. It's a story that belongs to anyone who has ever faced insurmountable odds and dared to dream of a better tomorrow. It's a reminder that no matter how dark the night, the sun will always rise again. It's a call to never give up, to keep fighting for what you believe in, and to hold on to the people who make life worth living. As I share this story with you, I hope it serves as a beacon of hope, a source of strength, and a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. Remember, the darkest moments often lead to the brightest beginnings. And no matter where you are in your journey, know that you are never alone. Did you like the story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story with love and respect.